what happened in Las Vegas. There is nothing about this which is conventional, nothing about it which is cheerful. And frankly, a lot of it is not making sense, too. That's the other part. One of the biggest frustrations, people have been wondering, what was the motivation? Because practically in every other mass murder, mass shooter, there is some sign, some notes, some associations, some training, some actions. A lot of clues were usually there, and people would either miss them or choose not to miss them or not say anything about it. And so there are all these questions, because even today, a number of days later, nobody knows why. And it's not making sense. And then ended up having a conversation with Tom Silver. Tom Silver, I last had on the show, I think it was, 2-3 years ago, Tom?
Yeah, it was a few years back.
And, Tom, you are you are a professional hypnotherapist, correct?
Yeah, I'm a certified hypnotherapist. I had extensive training in hypnotherapy. I've created my own methods over the past 35 years. I teach courses around the world in scientific hypnosis and neurofeedback.
And you have a website, by the way, tomsilver.com. You've had television appearances. You've done television shows such as, I think one of them was called Brainwash.
One of them was Brainwash on Discovery Channel. I hypnotized a guy to kill somebody, shoot someone in Manhattan, forget exactly everything he did when we debriefed him. I've been on Jimmy Kimmel Live, Montel, Sally, Jesse Raphael, Ricky Lake. So I've been on a ton of TV shows, yes.
And more importantly, you have a background of having worked with foreign governments in order when it comes to hypnosis. So I just wanted to kind of set the table of your bona fides here. So what kind of work did you do overseas with various governments?
Well, Bill, in 1997 and 1999, I worked with the Taiwan Department of Defense and Secret Service on the biggest weapons procurement scandal in France and Taiwan, $2.4 billion weapons scandal, murder of a Taiwan procurement officer. I hypnotized witnesses, victims, and active and imprisoned military officers against their will to get the truth out of them, and then to erase or replace their memory after 8 to 10 hour interrogations by the DOD.
Okay. Now, by the way, Tom is going to have a book out, I think, sometime next year, and it's entitled Kill the Hypnotist.
Kill the Hypnotist, autobiography based on that. You know, I actually could have really gotten killed, Bill. But again, I had an opportunity, man, to do things that people say can't be done. Everyone thinks hypnosis is someone barking like a dog. It's a science.
Well, yeah, and that's just it. And that's the part that I can't say I understand completely. We like to think that we are all in control of our thoughts, our emotions, our faculties, at least if we're sane, that we have total control, and that we can't be suggested or told to do something which is against our moral code. As a matter of fact, other hypnotists over the years that I've talked to say, oh, no, you can't be hypnotized to do something which is against your moral code.
Yeah.
And you were different. You said, oh, absolutely you can. And then when I combined this with the 20 to 30,000 pages of MK Ultra documents that were released back in the 1970s, that the CIA was working with drugs and hypnosis in order to, create killing machines, in effect, right?
Yes, absolutely. Assassinations, killing machines. Hypnosis is used by governments, man. It's used by the Department of Defense. It is a tool used to manipulate the mind for someone to commit a horrific crime or to kill a drug cartel leader. I mean, hypnosis has been used for hundreds of years. I gave you a document by Alfred Binet, a psychologist, French psychologist and hypnotist back in 1888. Why don't you read a little segment on this book to prove what we're saying is true? Hypnosis is a great science, but it's also a deadly science.
Yeah, it's not something to be trifled with. We know this.
No.
And this is from Animal Magnetism. It was written in 1888, like you had mentioned, by Alfred Binet. And he was a French psychologist and a hypnotist, too. And he says, it is possible to suggest to a subject in the state of somnambulism fixed ideas, irresistible impulses, which he will obey on awakening with mathematical precision. If arms are given to him, he may also be induced to commit any crime, which is prompted by the experimenter.
Yes.
These facts show that the hypnotic subject may become the instrument of a terrible crime, the more terrible since immediately after the act is accomplished, all may be forgotten, the crime, the impulse, and its instigator. Although the subject is quite himself and conscious of his identity, he could not resist the force which impels him to perform an act, which he would, under other circumstances, condemn. Hurried on by this irresistible force, the subject feels none of the doubts and hesitations of the criminal who acts spontaneously. He behaves with a tranquility and security, which would in such a case ensure his success of the crime. The danger of these criminal suggestions is increased by the fact that at the will of the experimenter hypnotist, the act may be accomplished several hours and even several days after the date of suggestion. Loss of memory is one chief characteristic of the facts of suggestion. The amnesia may be either spontaneous or suggested.
Yeah, and that's why I believe the killer in Las Vegas has been hypnotized. We can call it brainwashed, but has been programmed to kill as many innocent people as he can.
Okay, so let's say you as a hypnotist,
Yes.
that you were hired to do something like this, or perhaps you were on staff. And
Right.
I'm not saying government, because who knows? Well, we'll just take a we'll take a look at what's going on right now and say who benefits out of what happened in Las Vegas. All right, who benefits? Now, we know that Michael Bloomberg, I'll just throw an example, is putting $25, $30, $40 million into gun control efforts. And
Yep,
so you're thinking about
absolutely.
that. Well, let's just say, and like I said, this is just a theory, just throw it out there just for sake of argument, that Michael Bloomberg takes a million or two, hires an agent, and says, okay, we need to create something that's going to get my agenda pushed forward. Now, I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying
Right.
the possibility.
Right.
So he hires someone with your skills, let's say.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
What do they do?
Well, he hires someone with my skills, and I befriend somebody, or I meet a few different people. I test their suggestibility by indirect suggestion in the waking state. Maybe I tell them I'm a hypnotist and I can help them with some of their emotional problems or stresses, like I did with these imprisoned military officers. And then what I do is I do my conditioning under hypnosis, either through physical concentration techniques, mental concentration techniques, or a spontaneous shock to the nervous system, where I grab a person unexpectedly and throw them down into hypnosis, called a shock induction. I teach those around the world. Then I start programming them through post-hypnotic suggestions. Each time I hypnotize you, you're going to go more deeper receptive into hypnosis. And then once I have them really conditioned and I can conduct a test, a memory loss, amnesia, if I can create and stimulate amnesia, meaning I can shut off the conscious, and if I can create an illusion or hallucination, then I can implant a suggestion that could be a suggestion to kill hundreds of people.
Okay.
Hello there, how are you?
I'm okay.
Good. I'm Suzanne. What is your name?
I don't know.
No
I don't know.
recollection of your
No.
name. No
No.
recollection of your name. Do you know why you came in today?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's great. That's fine. That's okay.
Suzanne, hi, I'm Tom. Hi, what's
there.
your name?
I don't know.
Well, I'm a hypnotherapist, and I heard that you do hypnotherapy.
I do?
Okay, so what'd you come in for today?
I don't know.
Okay, what's your name?
I don't know.
Have you ever had a name?
I must have.
Yeah?
Yeah.
At some point.
Is it Bob?
I don't. That
Mike?
doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, so what'd you come in here for today? But when I touch him on the forehead, he'll remember his name perfect. You know your name. What's your name?
Peter.
Peter, I'm Tom. That's great.
Good to see you.
Okay, but he doesn't remember what he's come in for. Peter, you're a hypnotist.
Yes.
Okay, what'd you come in for today?
Something.
Okay, well, you're here. You came from where? Santa Barbara?
Right.
What'd you come in for today?
I don't know.
Okay, so when I simply push my hand in front of his face, just like this, he has again forgotten his name, but he knows what he's come in for today, but he's forgotten his name. The name is gone, but he knows what he's come in for today. Suzanne, why don't you introduce yourself to this
Hello,
young
I'm
man?
Suzanne, and your name is?
Well, ask
Do you
him.
know why you came in today?
I wanted to experience hypnotic phenomena today.
Oh, well, wonderful, wonderful.
Well, introduce yourself to him.
I'm Suzanne.
And I'm
Okay, so you've come in for what?
hypnotic phenomena today.
Okay, great. I'm Tom. I want to help you. What's your name?
I could say, give a direct suggestion just on at 3 o'clock in the evening, you'll have an uncontrollable desire. You're going to take your gun out and you point it out the window and you're going to shoot everyone passing by. Or I can give a suggestion that everyone at that concert were Al-Qaeda sleeper cells and that you're working for the government and it's your job to get rid of these people and save our country.
And we know that this shooter, who's now dead, of course,
Yeah.
was a former government employee. He worked for what was it, Northrop, I think is what it was. But one way or another, auditor, worked for the Internal Revenue Service at one point, too.
Right.
So you could see how you could take someone's original bent or just normal way of thinking that, well, of course, if these are Al-Qaeda agents, and they're going to go out there and killing people, well, I need to do something about this. And so this is something that would, if you're able to get that suggestion in there, that you're able to see people not as they are, but as how you are suggested, then off to the races we go.
Yeah, I've
right?
stimulated an illusion. In a hypnotism show, you stimulate illusion and hallucination. And that's the truth. Some people are really in an altered reality. Of course, in a show, some people are faking it. But through a series of tests, you can test how far you can go with that person under hypnosis. Hey, this guy lived in Vegas. He was a gambler. Gambling is a form of a hypnotic state. It's a hyper-suggestible state. Maybe someone saw him at a hypnosis stage show in Las Vegas and thought this guy's a great subject. Maybe this was conducted by people against guns, of course, like you said. Maybe a sleeper cell did this. Maybe this is something set up by the guy who runs North Korea. Or,
there's all sorts of theories. All sorts of theories,
Maybe his girlfriend and maybe her relatives, maybe someone in the family secretly hypnotized the guy, gave him a post-hypnotic suggestion and used the trigger. I can say as soon as the phone rings, you'll pick up your guns, you'll put them, you'll break the glass in the window, and you're going to shoot everybody at this concert because all of these people are people that are here to destroy America. I can implant that, and I can say at the end when you finished your job and you're looking at the screen, and as soon as you see someone walking down the hallway, you're going to take that gun, put it to your head, and you're going to, take your own life.
So your witness is gone. The person who instigated it is gone and forgotten.
Yes.
And it's just, appears to be completely clean. And I guess the point is, we don't know this happened, but it can. It is very possible. And
all the signs show that this is probably what has occurred. The guy didn't snap. He didn't snap and freak out. He methodically set everything up in a calm, tranquil way. If not, someone would have spotted this guy as he was going back and forth in the hotel, bringing in his luggage.
Nobody said that they ever observed him as being nervous.
Yeah, no background crimes, right? No violence in his past. So there's nothing to say that this guy had a preconditioned disposition to do such a heinous crime. I believe he was programmed and hypnotized to commit murder.
Now, why won't the mainstream kind of even just look into something like that?
Well, I think
at least as a possibility.
I think because the mainstream has been programmed and conditioned to think hypnosis is just used for someone to lose weight and stop smoking, and it's just they tell you in the hypnosis schools, well, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. You won't do anything against your life, script, or morality, and that's a bunch of BS. I've been in this field for 35 years. I have a gold plate of honor from the Taiwan Secret Service Defense Department, and I'll tell you, hypnosis is a wonderful science. It's a great science in the right hands, like medicine. Mm-hmm. But in the wrong hands, it is dangerous. And maybe some people out there are using hypnosis for negative purposes, manipulation, sexual seduction. Hey, there was a lawyer recently that was sentenced to prison because his clients, he was secretly hypnotizing and then physically touching them. I don't know if you heard about that story.
I do recall that, a vague reference to that. Yeah.
He got sentenced to about, 10 or 11 years in prison. There was a professor, a school professor, hypnotizing some of his students recently. This is on the news. And I think 4 of those students died after the hypnosis. Now, maybe it's coincidental, but maybe it's something more. And so we really got to look at hypnosis as a mind tool. And it is used as a form of brainwashing, for sure.
Is there a way... Now, I know now I'm going to be going off into coast-to-coast AM kind of land here, a little bit here.
Yeah.
I have to ask, can a media or a show or something that you watch, can anything like that ever be created that would induce a mass hypnosis.
Absolutely. You know, a few years back, I was contacted by a major TV network. They wanted to do a show and hypnotize everyone in the audience, like to lose weight or stop smoking. But they didn't realize that certain abreactions can occur. Somebody who's smoking a cigarette, it might be an emotional bandage for an inner rage, and they could do something destructive.
Right.
So we're hypnotized all the time. Look at the news. What's the news doing, man? They're creating fear in people every single day. We're seeing these commercials. So all of a sudden we drive by this McDonald's. All of a sudden we want to go in and get one of those, the food in there.
So in other words, we're taking suggestions all the time.
All the time. We're giving suggestions. The more the suggestion is repeated, the more it goes into the subconscious, the more it stimulates emotion and craving, and the more it puts you in their control.
I want to take a couple of calls here. Bob's in the Agate Desert. We're talking with Tom Silver, a certified hypnotherapist, and a long history in the media with government action here, too.
I've done a lot in the field of hypnotism, and, I know what I'm doing, and I know what I'm saying, and what I'm saying is the truth.
And for all we know, he may be hypnotizing me as we speak. Hello, Bob. What's on your mind today?
Man, you know what? I got in on this late, but I heard this, and it's like, oh, this is perfect conspiracy day talk. It's like this smacks. Now, Shane said you'd already hit the subject, but this smacks of MK Ultra.
Yep.
And you were talking about these suggestions. The movie industry got their butts hammered years ago because they were using. They put in these little snippets, flashing on popcorn and soda pop and things like that during the movie.
Yes.
To get people to go buy more junk food.
Yes. And it worked, too, from what I remember.
Excuse me?
It worked, too.
Oh, it worked perfectly. And so you're discussing this about coming across on the TV. This is all so possible, and this is all so viable.
And the question that we're raising here, Bob, thank you very much. The question we've been raising, though, is that if there's a possibility that what we saw in Vegas could have been someone who was under a hypnotic suggestion of some sort.
Absolutely, post-hypnotic suggestions.
So what do you mean when you talk about the trigger?
A trigger is, I can give it, like when I did the Brainwash show. I told a guy he didn't make it on the show, but yet I had him totally conditioned, and I knew I could have him shoot somebody and kill somebody. So I said,
Now, by the way, you were not doing this with real guns.
No, this wasn't real guns, or I'd be in prison. You'd be talking to me in a jail cell. It wasn't real guns, but it just proves that the Manchurian Candidate theory is true. It's real, and it's been done many times. But a trigger is a signal to induce a person back into hypnosis in the waking state. So I might say, as soon as you hear the phone ring, you'll instantly go over to where your guns are. You'll set them up. You'll point them out the window, and everything you see moving, you're going to be shooting at. That's a trigger. I could say every time that you eat a piece of healthy food, it's going to make you feel healthier and more motivated to exercise and lose weight. So a trigger is a signal, and the signal could be a handshake, it could be a sound, it could be a sign. Hey, look at the trigger. Every time when you think about all these fast food places and the signs up there, all those signs are triggers. Those are triggers to manipulate a person's emotions to go in and eat that food.
It could even be something, from what I understand, as innocent as, all right, someone who's next to you in the room fluffs the pillow.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden, I've read about stuff like that.
Simple trigger. As soon as you open the door, you'll and then once the trigger takes place, the person who looks normal, they don't look like they're hypnotized. Everyone thinks that person hypnotized is in some deep trance state. Their eyes are closed or they've got these zombie eyes. That's not true. So in that state of hypnosis, waking hypnosis, the suggestion is so powerful that it is just all it is ringing in their mind to do this. It's an uncontrollable desire, and it's a compulsion they can't even hold themselves back at. Even if they're aware that they're doing it, they can't stop themselves from doing it.
I've read that we tend to even induce hypnosis in ourselves from time to time. For example, is it true as an example if you're driving down the road and all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where you don't even remember having driven the 2 miles between one exit to the other. It's like, how do they get here?
Absolutely.
I don't remember having done that. Isn't that a form of self-hypnosis?
What's automatic pilot? Automatic pilot's your subconscious mind driving for you. And when you learn how to drive, you learn certain what we call reflex impulses. So all of a sudden, a kid rides his bike in the middle of the road. You swerve or you stop without even thinking about it.
That's true. You don't.
So
Don't even think.
that's movies hypnotize us. That's why they do all those commercials at the movie theater. They put you in a low brainwave state, hyper suggestibility. So. This is a real deal, and I believe that person was really hypnotized, Bill. I believe it without a doubt.
So you're saying, though, that it is possible, in spite of what others may have said, that you can hypnotize someone to commit crimes against their will.
You want the truth from me?
Yep.
I could hypnotize someone to commit a horrible crime if I really wanted to, if I was a deviant, or if I was a person that wanted to destroy certain things or create a revolution in a country. Yes, I could. I don't do it, but I have the power to have somebody do something they would never, ever do and not even remember it.
When you were working for the Taiwanese,
Yes.
did they ever ask you to do anything like that?
No, all they wanted me to do was to do a form of regression, take the person back to the event, create the finger of truth tied into their central nervous system like a human lie detector, and they wanted to gather information so that they can find evidence, legal evidence to find the full spectrum of the case and the murder and the weapon scandal and everything else. And they really did. They uncovered a lot of things. And I even proved that some of the people accused of the murder that they were torturing and wanted to execute were actually proven innocent under hypnosis.
Interesting.
So it's a really great tool.
So it can be used in, for good or for bad things here.
Just like medicine. How many people are addicted to opiates? One of the biggest deals out here in America now is opiate addiction. So when you think about it, medicine is great, but if you use it incorrectly, it's poison. A car is wonderful to go from point A to point B. Used incorrectly, it's dangerous and it's a killer.
All right.
A knife you can cut food with. Used incorrectly, you can stab a person.
Let's get a couple more calls in before we cut Mr.
right.
Silver loose, because,
Thank
like
you,
I said,
sir.
it's always fascinating. It's like just another wrinkle here on Conspiracy
and
Theory
I'm excited
Thursday.
to tell the truth about hypnosis, and I do believe that guy was programmed to kill.
Patrick's in Gold Hill. Hello, Patrick.
Hey, hello, and great topic. Just listening and putting two and two together with what you're talking about, it seems to me like if somebody just snaps without human intervention,
Yep.
he would do something and say, "What the heck? Why'd I do that?" On the other hand, if a guy carries out a lengthy series of complex tasks and stays on task for, days, that's more like mind control. Am I right?
You are right, and hypnosis is a form of mind control. I could keep a person in that state of suggestibility or hypnosis for days. I can keep them in that state for days, and each trigger can reinforce their final decision, and that is to maybe kill. So, yes, it is mind control. It is totally mind control.
He didn't just snap.
No.
That would have been on again and off again in a short time.
Well, absolutely. And look at the people who snap and they all of a sudden kill a bunch of people. What do when they regain their consciousness? They have remorse, and usually they take their own life afterwards. So if snapping is a person going into that altered state of reality with uncontrollable rage.
All right, let's take a call here from Anton. You get the final question here with Tom Silver, hypnotherapist. How you doing, Anton?
Hey, Anton.
Hey, good morning, Bill.
Morning.
I just want to, from a guy who knows NLP, bring up
neuro-linguistic programming. And in fact, before we go there, we had another caller that wasn't able to stay here, wondering if neuro-linguistic programming is a form of hypnotism.
Well, absolutely. NLP was derived from the teachings of Milton Erickson, who was a wonderful psychologist and a hypnotist back in the 50s and 60s. And it was Crindler and Bandler, absolutely, yeah. So they mirrored and kind of utilized Milton Erickson's natural techniques, and they converted it into neuro-linguistic programming.
Anton, you had another question here or comment? Go ahead.
What I was calling about is years ago, there was a movie called Telethon with Charles Bronson and Lee Remick. It was exactly about this. And they had a rogue Soviet agent that came to the United States, and he was calling all these people who were brainwashed.
Yeah.
And he'd call them up and he'd say, "You have miles to go before you sleep." They would literally drop everything.
I remember that movie.
and they would
I
go
did see
bonk.
that. Okay.
And it's
Post them on.
just like what we're talking about. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's been around forever and a day, man.
But maybe we comfort ourselves in thinking, oh, that's just the movie, right?
Yeah, it was a good movie actually, but yeah, it just reminds me of that.
Hey, and did you know that Adolf Hitler was trained by Erich Honessen, who was a Hungarian hypnotist back in the 1930s? He actually trained Hitler in mass hypnosis through the repetition and movement of a body and repetition of words with emotion behind it.
You can see that when he does a speech.
Yeah.
It was very calculated.
Absolutely.
Very calculated.
We call it
Miles to go
charisma.
before I sleep.
Yeah, charisma or calculation.
Yeah.
Anton, appreciate the
Thanks,
call.
Anton.
I appreciate you coming in here.
Hey,
Thanks,
man,
because
this is great.
It's a different way of looking at it, and stay in touch. And like I said, you reached out. You're just saying. I guess what happened is that you had a client that was saying, "Hey, has anybody talked to you?"
Well, that's
right?
it. I had an email. A young lady wanted me to help her with her daughter with some different emotional issues, and she says, how come no one's talking to you about this crime that occurred? You know, she knew my history in the field of scientific hypnosis. You know, I've been around the block. I've walked the walk, and I've created the methods. And, you know, I am excited to come on to tell you the fact is that hypnosis is wonderful in the right hands, but it's also deadly in the wrong hands. And I do believe that this guy was programmed, maybe against his will, maybe indirectly or even directly. He was programmed to commit this horrible, heinous crime. And whatever the motives were, was it to outlaw guns, and or maybe it was done by a secret operative, a sleeper from Al Qaeda, or whatever the reason is. If he was alive, I could get into his subconscious and we could have got the truth out of him. Unfortunately, I can't hypnotize a dead guy.
All right, Tom, appreciate the take. Thanks for your thoughts on that.
Thank you, sir.
TomSilver.com if you wanted to read up more on a very interesting subject indeed. 7:35, you're on KMED. Now, folks, that was a Conspiracy Theory Thursday guest, wouldn't you say? Yeah, Shane, I think you'd have to agree. Interesting discussion on hypnosis. And I remember one of the reasons I wanted to talk with Tom when I first had him on the show, it's been, I want to say 3 years when I last had him on. I forget why we brought him on, but because he was kind of going against the grain of what we would traditionally be told by, let's say, you end up going to the mobile show someplace, you end up going to the Criterion, and here's a hypnotist that's going to put you under and do the demonstrations. And the talk being that you could never be conditioned to do something against your will or was against your moral core, that sort of thing. And Tom has been insisting right from the beginning, and one could say from the work with the Taiwanese government and various others that, we're going to get to the core of something that may not necessarily be beneficial to you, right? Yeah. So is that what happened in Las Vegas? Don't know. But the one thing I think we can all agree on is that there just seems to be a completely clean record. I mean, the worst thing that people have come up with about the murderer in Las Vegas who did all this shooting, the worst thing they've been able to come up with is that he berated his girlfriend in front of the barista at the Starbucks. That's the worst thing we've ever had anybody say in the past. That's about it. All right, so what do we know? Well, he was a jerk with women, or at least with that woman. That's what we know. And other than that, no associations, no politics, no social media print, no digital fingerprint, no nothing. And then this. Very odd indeed. Maybe hypnosis is an explanation for what we saw.